Coast Salish people,
on whose traditional territory Brentwood College School resides. We express our gratitude to the Malahat and Cowichan nations. We value the opportunity to learn, live, and share educational experiences on this traditional territory. Please be seated. Welcome to the 2022 Remembrance Day Ceremony. Let me begin with an expression of gratitude to Ms. Plow, the IT team, and our technical theater crew for creating this beautiful and peaceful ambiance here in the Killy Theater. To our head prefect and assistant head prefects for reading the roll of honor, each name, thank you. To our keynote speaker, Mr. Robinson, we appreciate you sharing some personal and meaningful stories with us this morning. To Mr. Nunes and the wide array of talented musicians for the somber and uplifting gift of music. And finally, to the two people who curated today's ceremony, Mrs. Emile and Mrs. Widdenmeyer, Brentwood, past and present, extends our deepest gratitude to you both. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. 104 years ago, on November 11th, 1918, World War I concluded. It was dubbed the war to end all wars. Sadly, this has not been our experience. 104 years later, in 2022, we have Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Myanmar, Ukraine, Russia, Yemen, and many other conflicts that continue to rage across our planet. While we as humans have a high capacity for learning, we also have instincts to divide, lay blame, and others. Throughout history, we have teetered between embracing differences and repelling them. Depending on the political winds of the day, we can lean one way or the other. All of us, however, must take responsibility for our own behavior and try as best we can to help our community's experiences, make sure they are fulfilled, supportive, and peaceful in their lives. The intent of Remembrance Day is to honor, remember, and perhaps most importantly, learn. So today, I have 3 requests of you. Number 1, soak in every moment. Linger on every spoken word. And allow the powerful music and traditions to wash over you. 2, take time to scan the honor roll that is in the lobby of the Bunch Center just out here, that displays the names of every Brentonian that served during World War II, with the center reserved for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Later in this ceremony, those names will be read by Thomas, Heather, and Dylan. As tradition dictates, when you exit in silence from this ceremony, please pin your poppy on the drapery surrounding the honor roll. It is our way of binding you, today's Brentwood students, to those from the past. Dimanu in Manum. My final request. For the past 10 years, I have had the privilege of reading a poem that was written just after World War II by one old Brentonian to another old Brentonian, one friend to another. Like you, they sat through classes, painted in studios, performed in drama productions, rode on those waters out there in Mill Bay and Brentwood Bay and played rugby for their school. However, unlike most of our recent graduates, they did not go straight to university. They instead went to war. The poem is aptly named A Distance Time. It was written by Colin Lytton Graham to immortalize his first 15 rugby teammate and friend, Ian Gillespie, whose name will be read out this morning. You will see the engraved version of this poem on the Gillespie rock that sits outside the home change room outside the Foot Center. I encourage you to look at this monument. Take time with it. And when you pass it, reach down and touch it for good luck. So my third request of you this morning is to support Ian Gillespie's great-nephew, Simon Gillespie, Privet House 23, a grade 12 and lifer at Brentwood College School, as he appropriately takes my place this year in reading this poem. Simon.
A distant time. In the changing room after the Navy game, he said, "I've joined the Air Force." Through the steam from the showers, he was already a ghost. "Live forever, pussycat," I said. "I promised you, you'll live forever. We're all immortal when we go to war." You were posted missing in action the next I knew. Your Beaufighter went down on bomber escort over the channel. At Runnymede, I saw your name 20 years later. It seemed a terrible waste of the best fullback the world had ever seen. The citation said you died drawing enemy fire. What else? You'd call for the mark, solid as houses. You tackled like a rattlesnake. You didn't leave the kitchen when the fire got hot. I promised you you'd live forever. Well, almost. While I live, so do you.
Thank you, Simon. So, Brentonians, the torch has been passed to you to honor, to remember, and to learn from those that came before you. As we live, so do they, lest we forget. Please stand for the singing of the Canadian National Anthem.
Yet we give a trifle wary with Mr. Einstein's theory. So we must get down to earth at times, relax, relieve the tension. No matter what the progress or what may yet be proved, the simple facts of life are such they cannot be removed. You must remember these. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs, never out of date. Hearts full of passion, jealousy and hate. Woman needs man, and man must have his mate, that no one can deny. It's still the same old story, a fight for love and glory, a case of do or die. The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by.
Morning. Every day, it is common that we try to live a normal life filled with friends, family, adventures, and routine. Around the world, normal looks different, and oftentimes, war and conflict disrupt peace, stability, and the comfort of normalcy. Recently, my family and I changed our regularly scheduled routine of classes, hockey practices, games, duty nights, and report cards for a traveling sabbatical. There is no normal life. There's just life. Get on with it. As a kid, this quote always stuck with me. It was said by Val Kilmer, acting as Doc Holliday in the movie Tombstone, just before his character passed away due to tuberculosis. For our family, life was moving pretty fast, and we had a deep-seated desire to change our normal. With COVID restrictions loosening, as many of you know, we decided to pick up and travel for 5 months across 10 countries. It was a chance to strengthen our connections with each other and have some new adventures, experience deep conversations, and spend time individually, reflecting on our lives together. After a few months of wandering different places around the Mediterranean, we ventured north and found ourselves on the north coast of France, having a picnic of baguettes, brie cheese, meats, fruit, and fresh pillow-sized meringues from a nearby patisserie. It was here that we collectively had a moment of epiphany. On this day, there were people scattered along the beach playing soccer, swimming in the water, sunbathing in the sand, or having restful picnics in the gentle breeze. My boys raised the question, should that be allowed here? Or should this be a place for somber reflection? The beach we were on was a part of the Allies' Operation Overlord on June 6, 1944, during World War II. We were on Sword Beach. The Allies, made up mainly of US, Canadian, and English forces on that day in 1944, sought to reestablish freedom from a totalitarian regime by establishing a foothold in Europe on 5 different beaches: Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. My grandfather, Colin William Robinson, was at Sword Beach that day, the same beach we had a picnic on, what would be 78 years later. This is my grandfather in his youth, before World War II started. During our trip to this region, I reflected on his journey frequently and how he might have persevered through the trials and tribulations of war, and how normal for all had been turned upside down during this time. After the Second World War was over, he spoke animatedly about the fun times, the laughs, the close calls, but never about the horrors. Do you see a resemblance between us? Maybe if I take my glasses off. In the smile? He is pictured here as a 28-year-old. He was a medic and an ambulance driver as part of the Lancashire Fusiliers in the British Army. Second row, second from the left, his best childhood pal right beside him. While I did not know him as well as I wanted to since he passed away from cancer when I was 5, I have some memories of his character and have learned a lot about him since those times in recent years. Proud, serious, personable, and had a great sense of humor. During World War II, there were times where, as a corporal, he would return home from leave with 2 stripes, and then the next time with 1 stripe, and then with 2 stripes again. During our Meta 9 personal narrative assignment, I tell my group a story every year of one of his adventures while serving. After weeks of rations and water, he and his platoon wanted something normal. So he and his best friend wandered into a nearby abandoned French village, raided some houses for bread, cheese, and wine, and then stole a cart horse to get back to camp. Major Horrocks, who was inspecting the battalion at the time of his arrival back, saw my granddad and his friend riding back on this camp with a horse and loot, looked them up and down, and commended their initiative. Across Europe, young people at this time loved live music and dance halls. Now, the Robinsons are not the best dancers, so I'm not sure how much time my grandfather spent in these places, but leaves from the front would come every 6 to 15 months, and based on our family timeline of events, I would guess that those were happy moments, while the chaos ensued on the continent. He married my grandmother, Alice, and subsequently had my Aunt Heather in 1942, my Aunt Terry in 1944, and after the war, my father in 1947. Communication in those days was different. There was no Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, or Wi-Fi, so when updates came home, or it came from the front, or it came to the front, sorry, it was either by letter or, in a more expensive rush, by telegram. When my Aunt Terry was born, my grandfather received a telegram from home. Dear Colin, stop. You have a new daughter. Stop. No name, no details, no pictures. Not normal. As I mentioned previously, he was a medic and a driver during the Second World War. That's him in the middle. He never spoke about the atrocities or conditions that he saw, but he focused his stories on the adventures he had with his mates. For example, somewhere near Belgium, he had woken up one morning and had a very close call. Typically, the protocol was for one soldier to get breakfast while the other maintained position. However, on this day, both he and his pal left the foxhole and wandered into a mobile canteen for breakfast. While they were eating, their platoon's position in the field was subject to an air raid and was bombed relentlessly. When he returned to his foxhole after breakfast to get his supplies, he found it completely destroyed. Fortunately, he and his pal had broke protocol, and both of them survived the attack without harm. To him, those were good memories, things worth talking about. On the darker side, during the push to the east, his battalion went through Arnhem. The battle here was a crucial one, and there were heavy losses on all sides. He never spoke about that. I often wonder how he might have dealt with incidents like that, and how he managed those memories in the days and years afterward. By spring of 1945, near the end of the war, 35,000 had already died at the concentration camp called Bergen-Belsen. That's before the British and Canadian armies had liberated it. Upon arrival, they found nearly 13,000 unburied dead. Of the 60,000 they found alive, 14,000 would later die of malnutrition, typhoid, or other diseases. This was not normal. This was pure chaos. My grandfather did not speak of his experience here until 20 years later. When he finally did, he was sitting in the living room watching the TV with his daughter-in-law, my mum. The news was broadcasting something about the war trials happening, and the newsreader was talking about Bergen-Belsen. Out of the blue, he quietly quipped to my mom, "I was there." He didn't say anything else. He didn't tell anyone else or talk about what he did or what he saw. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Despite all he had seen and experienced during these dark days, I feel that my grandfather lived this idea that Viktor Frankl suggests in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Though he had seen things I cannot possibly fathom and held things secret to protect those around him, he lived life after the war with a sense of order and purpose, while also finding joy and humor in the important moments. This made life normal. I remember, as a young child, being in the back seat of a car with him on our way to a family dinner. And despite my mom's pleas, he was sneaking me big chunks of Toblerone. We both giggled like we were 5 years old. More modernly, there are people around the world looking to create normal during times of chaos. In this past spring, there were young women wearing grad dresses and putting on makeup, trying their best to celebrate normal traditions in war-torn Ukraine. Oftentimes, despite the lack of food or fresh water in destroyed neighborhoods, kids find games to play with each other, like these kids playing soccer in Syria. Despite laws that prevent them from doing so, girls in Afghanistan are finding ways to enjoy the experience of reading and writing and gaining an education. They're finding their normal amidst chaos. I want to start my conclusion with a quote that has stuck by me for nearly my entire adult life. Heroes are heroic because they, despite their weaknesses, and sometimes because of them, do great things. That is why they are here in Earth's classroom. My grandfather is a hero for our family. You can see in this picture taken toward the end of the war that his twinkle and smile are missing, and yet he managed to live a joyful life surrounded by family and friends. To answer my boy's question from that day that we had on Sword Beach, yes, absolutely yes. We should picnic there, play there, and sunbathe there. But while we do so, we should not hesitate to take a moment to remember those that stood and fought for peace and freedom, and to be mindful for those men and women around the world that continue to uphold these values today. On this day, every year, I reflect on my grandfather's ability to find a sense of normal during times of chaos, and for finding light in times of absolute darkness, lest we forget.
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue sky
On the 11th hour of November 11th, people will gather at war memorials to pay tribute to the millions who have been killed in war. Each will reflect in their own way.
Perhaps veterans will think of comrades as they were the few seconds before their death. Wives remember the endless vigil for husbands who never returned. Parents will think of their children who were so young and alive when they left home for the last time. We who are here today at our remembrance service might contemplate the horrors of war and contemplate the blessings of peace.
In the cemeteries of Europe, a simple maple leaf inscribed on over 100,000 gravestones tell visitors that Canadians killed in battle lie buried there. An awful price in human lives have been paid by the youth of past generations to achieve peace. By the act of remembering today, we endure. Their sacrifices are not forgotten.
Originally, in the old Brentwood chapel, built by a past generation of Brentonians, etched in oak are the names of the fallen Brentonians. This memorial now stands today in the lobby as you came in. Today, we pay homage to the courage of those young men who lost their lives during World War II from 1939 to 1945. Please stand for the reading of the honor roll, the last post, the silence, and the reveille. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Alec Balachi, Dacre Barrett Leonard, Norman Beard.
John Bishop, John Bryden, John Campbell.
Arthur Coulter, Alan Dunlop, Robert Field.
Ian Gillespie, John Gillespie, Bruce Hanbury.
Barnett Harvey, Sholto Marlott, Alan Mayhew.
Ken Osler, Richard Proctor, Robert Proctor.
Lee Salter, Ralph Smith, John Stubbs.
Donald Stewart, Glenn Svensson, Michael Simmons.
Thornton White, Lawrence Wilkinson, Ted Williams.
services are not a glorification of war. They are a call to peace. November 11th is a day of reflection. The torch of peace is being passed on. In the lobby is the roll of honor of the old Brentonians who died in the World War II. As you leave the theater, please place your poppy there as a tribute to them. The lobby will be left open for you to do this as well. The service will end with the vocal ensemble singing From Sea to Sky.
Group can go, top and bottom, please. Go ahead. One row at a time, please. One row at a time.